The mandala of poses is an abbreviation of the different types of poses that a yin yoga session may have. So we have rebound poses, which are the poses that we will use in between the other poses to allow us to feel the effects, to just take a moment to integrate sensation and experience. The seat of yin yoga poses focus on the lower up body. The spine of yin yoga focuses on the torso and the spine. And the wings of yin yoga focus on the upper body. We can combine these poses between each other. Just because I'm presenting them in a separate way does not mean they have to remain separated. You don't only teach always one class of seat poses. And actually, the mandala of the poses allows you to also see how you can sequence intelligently, because you can start to think about how you will combine certain poses. So it is wise very often, for example, if you are sequencing a seat class, or if you've done a lot of poses that involve the hips, you can add something in forward bends, you can add something to counterbalance that and add some of the poses from the spine, for example. Or if you are doing a session for people that spend a lot of time on the computer, then you want to combine maybe some wings poses, something upper body to help loosen up the shoulder blades, the arms. At the beginning of the class with something of the spine to help them find the back bend that they're definitely not getting while they're seated at their desks. And then combine something for the lower back with the seat. You would add the rebound poses in between the poses depending on what pose you will combine, how you will interact between these two poses. So the mandala of the poses gives you an idea of a part of the sequencing method for yin yoga. And it helps us, exactly as I mentioned before, identify a little bit more with what poses we're playing with and how we will combine them. In the Grilli method of yin yoga, there is no precise, exact way of putting the poses together. So this gives you kind of a way to start to think about that. And then the other part of the formula would be the energetic curve. So how are you going to play with how much yang you're going to add to this session? Most of the sessions that I've given in this module have been very yin, focusing on the seat. There's only been one that has had some yang in the beginning. So that energy curve was the most different of all. And that energy curve actually started with kind of making its way up towards solar energy and then finally making its way down towards even at the beginning of the class, that energy curve already started making its way down towards the yin ending of the session. But this can vary on how you will combine poses, sequences, and how comfortable you feel also with this combination. So different teachers give different methods also with how they combine, and they teach them in different ways. So the biggest way you're going to know how you're going to teach is going to have to do with how you practice the yin yoga practice. And from there, you'll teach from your own experience. I do only just advise to not combine too many short-held poses without any rebound and including too many down dogs. So we can include some yang, you can include some movement between poses, but we just need to be wise to not turn it into a yang session of a yoga and say that we're teaching yin yoga. Very confusing for students. Yin yoga is, we hold the poses, we hold them long periods of time. They're mostly poses that are focused on the hips, on the seat. And from there, we were able to play with the timing according to the group and always give flexibility to the students with how long they feel comfortable holding the pose. So it's never a forced 5-minute hold. And this is kind of a way to gauge on how to sequence, how to put poses together. If you want to add a step-by-step progression to certain poses, that's also very wise. You could add a half saddle and then make your way towards a full saddle. You could combine certain poses to prepare towards a greater hamstring stretch at some point in the class. You could make these sessions kind of with a peak pose, which is how more dynamic classes are structured. But this isn't necessarily how it has to be. You will have to experiment with your body, how the practice feels, how the poses feel, so that you'll understand better when you're teaching them the possible outcomes the students might feel with those classes. And of course, also keeping in mind that every individual is different, so experiences might change a lot from one person to another, depending on what movements you were doing and how different that's going to affect how everyone feels in a session.